Very good evening to all the viewers, and welcome to today's edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toiwan Jabela, your host. Tonight we are joined by Eben de Klerk, who is a consultant for the Economic Policy Research Association, EPRA, which has just released a report with the headline, or title rather, Taking Stock After 25 Years of Affirmative Action in Namibia, Stairway to Equality Heaven or Highway to Rent-Seeking Hell. Thank you, Eben, for making time. This is some report, very thick too. If you can give us a bit of a summary really of what it is about.
Thanks, Owen. Thank you very much for having me. So last year in September, two regulations came out, one in terms of the Affirmative Action Employment Act and one in terms of the Employment Services Act, whereby employers who previously employed 25 persons or more had to comply with those two laws. The loop has now been expanded to also increase the employers. We now employ 10 or more employees who must now fully comply with those two legislations. That obviously sent quite strong ripples through the business community, through private sector. You know, just immediately you have to understand that there's now far more businesses, thousands of more businesses that will have to incur further costs and have more compliance requirements put on them to be able to do business. And if they don't, it's a criminal offense in both instances. So EPRA decided to conduct some research into this, you know, to see whether the policy's direction is rational, whether it's necessary, and whether it will benefit our country. So the report is the result, essentially, of that research, and it was released just yesterday.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The key findings, some of the findings?
Okay, we looked at quite a lot of sources in terms of informing us, and eventually went into direction of, you know, generally, is affirmative action policy still rational and needed for our country? We came to the conclusion that it is not, based on the actual data, and based on the data from the Employment Equity Commissioner's report in 2018 itself. That was the last report that was issued. We did a survey amongst businesses, very, very strong feeling, 90% plus, in some instances 100% agreed that it will increase the cost of doing business. It will definitely increase the compliance requirements, and it will hamper, crucially, two crucial things. It will hamper business growth, because the more compliance and costs, the more you stifle growth, and you stifle the economy, and you stifle investment. One of the major issues that came out is that the government forces these businesses to first consider candidates, employees that's registered on the government portal, the employment portal. And that naturally means that any person who by private sector employment agencies or some other means can get a job is now discriminated against, because he must stand in the back of the line until the government has said, here's our candidates, you have to first consider them. And if you don't consider them in good faith, and we can argue about what that means, but if the onus is then on the employer that he considered in good faith, and if he didn't, again, criminal prosecution, potentially. So that's not good. Businesses will, if you have 9 employees and have the choice to employ somebody else to expand your business, just one person, you will probably be very strongly deterred from doing that, because suddenly you fall into the wider net of regulation.
Absolutely. For those who do not know, Eben, affirmative action, what does it mean? Well,
the affirmative action law now comes for 23 years. And the intention at the time was good, because we all know our country's history. There was widespread discrimination, and it was racial discrimination. And at the time, because of that, the white population, and especially white males, had a substantial benefit. They were given a benefit for long, so they obviously still sat with that benefit. So the affirmative action law at the time aimed at redressing that, rightly so at the time as well, to take all groups that were previously discriminated against and give them a bit of a better chance to get to the level of advantage that especially white males had. But our research now shows, one of the data sets that we used is the research that the Institute of Race Relations in South Africa, national survey that they conducted, that showed that black economic empowerment and affirmative action is becoming very unpopular. Not just slightly, very unpopular. Less than 10% of South Africans, black South Africans, support affirmative action and black economic empowerment. And that is natural if you look at what happened on the back of black economic empowerment in South Africa. Yeah. We haven't done that type of research in Namibia. I can't see that it's going to be very different. But if you look at the reality today, in 2018 already, there were 923 businesses that reported to the Employment Equity Commissioner. On average, well, a total of 277,735 employees were reported on through those 922 businesses. On average, those businesses or employers employ 300 employees. Of those 300 employees, on average, 6.5 of the 300 is white. Per employer, 1.07% sits in senior management position, and 0.6, not percent, per person. There's 1.07 persons, white males, sitting in a senior management position, and there's 0.6 white males sitting in executive director positions out of the 300 on average per company. Now you have to start asking yourself, what are we aiming for here? In total, there's 1,571 white males employed in all of those reportable employers. So we are actually sitting with a situation where the whole apparatus to improve equality amongst designated groups is actually aimed at only at over 1,500 white males who are now effectively in that senior management and executive director positions. That's what we're targeting, and we're selling it as a good thing for the whole country. Yeah. You know, this will improve empowerment in Namibia. 1,500 people. And even if you do that, even if you take all 1,500 white senior managers and executives out of the system today and say, now you are now replaced. Yeah. What is the expectation? Must they never work again? Must they now take unskilled or semi-skilled jobs so that they don't rise up again? Or must they start a new business? Because the moment they start a new business, they will be the seniors in that business again, and the problem have not been solved. It's just another business where the statistics will show that there's a white male there. So to rectify this, they will either have to leave the country, stop working completely, or accept a job as an unskilled or semi-skilled laborer. So it now becomes really absurd if you look at the actual numbers, that we have reached employment equity long ago. Yeah. Long ago. There's 6,000 in total, in the total workforce. 2.16% of the total workforce is white, of all those reportable entities. So and you look at the compliance requirements, sorry, and the cost associated with for all Namibian businesses, and all of that is just geared to target 1,500 Namibians. Yeah. It doesn't make rational sense anymore, basically.
Well, why do you think, what are the sort of recurring themes in South Africa as to why affirmative action and black economic empowerment are no longer wanted there? Is it because they have achieved the principal aim for which they were created, or because there's a sense, for example, in Namibia, that they've been hijacked by very few people? BEE, for example, people say in Namibia it has become a scheme of a few elite blacks, and it has not really trickled down to the normal black people, to the average black person that was being targeted originally. What seems to have been the issue there?
Well, look, a recurring theme in the report is the rent-seeking economy that you ultimately create. And as I've just explained now, the whole apparatus of Namibia's affirmative action laws is geared at targeting 1,500 white males, because the rest of the categories of employment has already been reached long ago. So even if you go all out, you are benefiting 1,500 black Namibians and women. That's the maximum amount of people that this can benefit. So who's going to benefit there? Forget about the results. But who's going to benefit? 1,500 Namibians. It is sold on the narrative. There's a lot of false narratives out there that white people own 95% of the economy. That is objectively not true. It's in fact completely impossible. If you just look at our country's own data on the economy, ownership, all the different industries, it's just not true. But it's also sold as you are suffering. As a government, I can see you're suffering. We understand why you're suffering. Mostly it's because of the past, and we have the remedy for you. And the general populace believed that for a long time,
yeah.
and thought that it is actually doable and possible, and gave it a go and supported it. So that encouraged the politician to create more and more policy. But now, over time, we've witnessed in Namibia and in South Africa that these policies are abused. And they have not benefited the greater population. Ultimately, you always will have a few persons who qualify. There's only so many white people that you can push out of the system to bring in a black person. You cannot say to 2 million black Namibians, we're going to empower you. It's just not possible. There's not enough to empower them, even if you would chase all white Namibians out of the country today and give all their assets to previously disadvantaged, racially disadvantaged Namibians. It will make no difference to the people who stay behind. It will absolutely make no difference. The scales are just not big enough. But the policies are still being pushed because of political gain. There's obviously a lot of political gain. And as our research also showed, that there's a major concern that, again, this government employment system is open for abuse. Because the moment you have a loop that you must go through in terms of doing business, there's a person at the other side of the desk that must give you a license, that must give you approval, that must approve your empowerment plan before you may go ahead, and so forth. That becomes open for bribes. The persons who are registered on this, the employees or job seekers, may start giving a little bit of a kickback if they get pushed first, or being seen as being provided as the only available candidate with certain skills. Yeah. Persons can even start sifting through those CVs and say, well, I'm going to keep the better skills one for my brother's business because he's going to need them, and the others not to the other businesses. Yeah. So the whole system it leans itself towards more corruption, more nepotism, more favoritism. And that is what happened in South Africa. That's what happened at Eskom. That's what happened in so many municipalities in South Africa. And the populace have started to see that abuse. Yeah.
Absolutely. We go for a break and then return for the last part of the show.
NMH Ad 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact nmh1@synergy.com.na. NMH Ad 1, your lunchtime news companion.
The My.NA Cars Show provides viewers with the best in-class cars content, engaging interviews, as well as a showcase of the latest cars-related news, products, and services. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact my.na@synergy.com.na. My.NA Cars, more than just a ride.
We continue with Eben de Klerk. So, Eben, in relation to this is also the issue of the NIF bill that was being pushed, and originally it had a provision also of ceding 25%. I think that has now been removed, but the framework is still meant towards the same end, which is to empower the previously racially disadvantaged Namibians. So are you saying that has now been achieved, or are you saying that it can be achieved through other means?
Can I just quickly make a correction there, because there's a massive misconception that the 25% have been removed.
Yeah.
What has happened was that the 25% that was expressly stated has been removed, and it has now been opened up for any percentage.
Yeah.
So it can be 100% as well, at any time, when one individual in future would decide that that's the positions. Firstly, we spent a lot of time actually looking at our policy environment for many years going back, and where Namibia started falling off the track. You know, in 2005, Namibia was highlighted by the World Bank as one of the most competitive countries in the world. We were under the top 40 by 2006. In 2005, the report, they didn't do rankings then, stated that the ease of hiring people in Namibia is one of the easiest of most countries in the world. We were under the top 25%. We were under the top 10 countries in terms of ease of regulation. We were up there as a competitive country 18 years ago. Currently, we are at very close to the bottom. We have lost our competitive edge completely. From 2016, things went very wrong. And you know, government tells us it's the drought. Shortly after that, it was the pandemic. And it's also commodity prices. And of course, these things did play a role. They definitely did play a role. But the very clear departure from being a competitive country with a sustainable growth path started 14, 15, 16, and actually broke in 2016. So policy matters, and we say that. And those policies, we have to look at whether they are good for the country or not. Those are two questions. Is the policy generally good for the country? And secondly, have they been achieved? We will never know what has been achieved, even if it was promulgated by then, because like these two regulations of last year, there was never research on who, as government calls it, owns the economy. You know, without any definition coupled to that. If I ask you today, define who owns the economy, explain to me, own what exactly? Are we talking just about fixed assets, or are we talking about economic output, or are we talking about, are we also talking about companies on the stock exchange, which is trading shares every day, or are we talking about the mines and or are you talking just about farms? We need to define that definition. Have we achieved it? We can never say we've achieved it or not achieved it, because from day one, that policy came out of a complete vacuum. It was sold on the back of the rhetoric that white Namibians own 95%. Like I said, that's impossible. So what was our starting point? What was our objective base to be able to say we've achieved something? And which means that we sit with NIF as well, and the Investment Act then, and the investment bill that was tabled and immediately withdrawn in 2021, with irrational policy that just pops up like a mushroom overnight, and people are shocked. And the moment you ask for some sort of data, research, something that informed this, why is there a need for intervention? There's nothing. There's just nothing. There's an emotion. There's a very strong emotion, and the politicians drive that emotion. But in terms of research and data, there's just nothing.
Yeah. Well, what would have been the best approach at independence, when we recognized the history of the country, when we recognized the reality on the ground? The evidence at the time suggested that the means of production were in white hands, and that needed to be rectified so that it's equitably shared. And That was the principle, but you seem to have an issue with the approach. What would have been the best way to do this?
Look, firstly, it's dangerous to say the means of production were in white hands. A lot of it was already in government hands by then, and the government took over. The Namibian housing enterprise produced by far the most houses in this country. It was immediately taken over by the new government. So those type of statements are dangerous if you don't etch them out to understand what was the reality then. But definitely there was a favored position for white people given the discrimination in the past. What should have happened? It's easier now today to answer that question because in 1990 we didn't have the answers.
Yeah.
We were feeling in the dark. We were hoping for better things and trying to have this negotiated settlement on how to improve things. And we knew that there was discrimination, and we knew that we had to do everything to get that discrimination out there.
Yeah.
But now, in 2023, we look back, we look at the gains that we've made in our country. Like I say, the Namibian employment environment is now 2.1% white.
Yeah.
Okay. So the means of production cannot possibly be in the hands of white people anymore. Yes, there's a lot of white people owning small businesses, medium-sized businesses, but the opportunities, the equitableness that one would expect in an open economy is there. Yeah. We invest a massive amount in our education, in our universities, who are supposed to, and we are in the top 5, if not the second or third highest in the world in terms of our GDP expenditure on education. Our education outcomes are extremely poor. Those are the structural problems that we need to etch out before we just go to a little hill over Katatura and say, look at how the people are living. This type of legislation, and NIF and the investment bill trying to discriminate against certain portions to help those people will never help them. It cannot possibly help them. So our inequality is too big. The inequality amongst certain, apart from the white people, certain other minority groups might, and majority group perhaps, might be far, far larger than our current inequality in terms of black and white. So those are the questions that you must ask. Did we do the right thing then? What should we have done? I don't think we did the wrong thing. I think we did the right things then. Our economy, our country boomed. If you look at our economic figures after 1990, yeah, we just climbed. Jobs were created. Growth was there. The world came to us for business. We did the right thing at the time. The question is not what should we have done then. The question is, we now also witness for many years massive unemployment and unemployment increasing. Remember, unemployment decreased substantially. The economy grew. We had new universities, new university intake. The schools were open for everybody. It was going well under the current, under the policy environment thing. So I can't see that we did anything wrong. But we have to stop at one stage and say, okay, we've now made a mistake. For how long are we going to, well, in recent years we started making mistakes. How long are we going to repeat those mistakes just because we invested so much in them? And we are now dangerously walking a tightrope in terms of economic growth. It's really nice that they discovered oil. It wasn't out of our own doing. It was always been there. And there's a lot of hope. I have a lot of hope for that it will be very beneficial for our country. I don't have that optimism for the green hydrogen, but there's definitely a lot of things that can be very favorable for us. Yeah. But we have to get our policy environment right as well. And an investor was here, yeah, let me not talk out of the kitchen, but people are running away. People are running away because we think they don't read these type of policies and they don't understand the risk that they enter into, and we think that they will come regardless. That's not necessarily the case, and it's very arrogant if we continue to think that. What we need to do is we need to invest. We need to start, and some African countries have done it with great success. Rwanda, Zambia is now on the way. Open economy, a free market economy with protection for those who want to run away. I'm from a regulatory background, so I'm the first person that says that regulation must be there. Yeah. But it must also be pragmatic. You shouldn't over-regulate. So free market economy given enough space to grow and move and to feel incentivized to expand. That creates jobs, and people want jobs. They want jobs in this country. You can have a lot of arguments around the history and the emotions and, you know, the discrimination and even the definitions on who owns the economy. Ultimately, people want jobs, and we need to start creating jobs, because we haven't been creating them at the rate that the job market is expanding for a long, long time now. And if we're not going to address that, we're going to sit with a major problem in our country.
Absolutely. Yeah. In closing, Eben, the report, where can it be found?
This one and our previous reports are uploaded, always uploaded to our website. It's www.epra.cc/downloads.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, thank you very much for your.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, that was tonight's show with Eben de Klerk. Thank you for watching.